everyone. We're going to get started with our next session. It's my honor to introduce Kasper. Kasper is an independent Rails consultant with a strong focus on clear naming and domain modeling. He used to be on the Rails core team where he reviewed and merged over 1,000 contributor PRs. Kasper is still involved in open source with his own gems that take Rails further, and he's contracted with Bullet Train, so he is happy to talk about that work as well. He's also developing a new software development technique called Riffing that he's amped to see how it could fit and level up with you and your team's processes. Please join me in welcoming Kasper.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm Kasper. Like the intro said, I used to be on a Rails core team. I also did a bunch of features for it, like the built-in test runner. That was the first version of that. Rails commands, like an internal thing that never really got broadened out, so we just kind of replaced Rake a little bit. Rails credentials, form width, that was some other stuff. But these days, I work as a consultant for our product teams, but I also worked on multiple product teams as an employee. So this talk is focused on my experience with some of that. Today I'd like to talk about code design, and I like to define it as figuring out the names, responsibilities, and relationships in between objects in our system. And what I really want to focus on that is just how do we then get better designs out of our systems essentially. And I don't actually know, sorry. So what I mean by that is I don't know in an abstract sense. We can't just pop something out that's just perfect or anything like that. What I found for me is to achieve better design, I require a kind of process. One where I get to explore more with some fast iterations and more of them. And then for me to feel confident in what I'm doing, I need to have a lot of revisions on all of these areas, the names, responsibilities, and relationships. I need to have played around with names. I need to have played around with something being an attribute or full association or a separate model, all that kind of stuff. Okay, and I'd like to talk about how this came about for me. So working on one of these product teams, giving a new feature. Sometimes I'd feel, at the start of it, I feel really overwhelmed. Just like, how do I get started? Where do I even put things together? And then towards the end of it, I'd feel really anxious. Like, did I do the right thing? Could I have done something better? All that kind of stuff. And being really like just confused about, oh, should I have done something different? And then eventually towards the end I'd get to a state where I just want to ship. So you'd end up getting kind of defensive in code reviews too, which also isn't great, whether you're the reviewer or the reviewee. And yeah, so my way out of that came just one day. I opened up like a blank Ruby file, I started sketching things out, and then I got good results with that. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what riffing is. We're going to talk about some of the benefits I've gotten from this and some of the obstacles that you might face if you were to try it out. And then we'll try and do a live demo. Hopefully that's going to go well. So we'll see, because you kind of can't, I tried to rehearse some things, but you kind of can't rehearse it to sort of show what it feels like. So first up, riffing is non-compete. It's just one more tool in your toolbox. It's not a revolution, it's not an evolution. So if you get good results with something like pen and paper, ERD diagrams to sketch things out, or TDD, whatever, like keep doing those. Riffing can just be something that can add to that thing. So how it works is I'm using a single Ruby file, and I tend to lean on conventions as much as possible, and we're using near runnable code. It's kind of tough to define, but it's easy once you see it. And then what we're aiming to is actually just to learn about the problem we're working on, like the specification and all that stuff, and to surface unknowns, both those known unknowns and unknown unknowns. If you happen to get working code, that's great, but that's actually not the point. We're mostly trying to just learn and figure things out here. Also, this is a fundamentally creative act, so we're using more of that side of ourselves as opposed to de-engineering. So that's why we're also dispensing with a bunch of things like different file names or whatever, or even testing in some cases. See, and real sessions are usually around 40 to 60 minutes for me. So this is pretty cheap to run. I only have 45 minutes here, so I can't do one full thing. And then usually it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get into like a flow state with this stuff. You can shorten that a little bit more if you're under pressure, like so that helps. Okay, let's try a little demo first and see how it goes. How do I switch to what I needed to, or I need to move this over here? Okay, all right. And can you see that okay? So what I tend to do is so what we're doing is a very, very simple spec just to get started. Users can favorite other objects in our system. pretty loose. We'll see how it goes. So what I tend to do is just start writing out a controller really. I tend to start with those. So that might look like user's favorites controller. I don't need to do the subclass because it's not helping me, or the superclass. And then I tend to lean on just standard REST routing and everything. So then what I want is probably like current user, and then maybe they can favorite something. Favorite, that's also cool. And then I don't know what I want to do with this right now. Maybe I know I do want to do something with these params to convert it into a user somewhere. I don't know where yet. So part of what I like starting with controller is I can hit both a little bit of the view side, get an inkling about what that might look like, but then also how it would interact with a model. So let's see, I might sketch out part of a user here. I have to type and look at the screen over there because of some mirroring and stuff. So it's like remote programming actually. Maybe I'll do like as many favorites or favoritires. That's also cool. I don't want to bother with dependent destroy or anything like that right now because it's not giving me any design feedback. That's mostly what I'm looking for. That's also why I don't put in like application record there. Let's see, what if I do like favorite? I spelled right. Maybe do pass it in like that maybe. Okay, and then now we settled some of this stuff here. Maybe I want to see like user favorite something. It's going to be a join table where it just belongs to the user. And then, it's going to be belongs to record. Something like that. Let's see here. And then I also know there's something called signed global IDs. Global ID is what active job uses in the background to fetch, so you don't have to do a find it in your jobs essentially. But assigned global IDs, so there's a way that then puts a signature on that UID, so you can pass it what's it called, like on the view side essentially. Let's see, do that, and then I can't remember. It's either called find or locate. We'll figure it out. Let's see. So I think we want to do branch ID, and you can also give it a purpose to scope it down a little bit more. So the signature is only valid for one use case as long as you pass in the same symbol when you then decode or generate it on the view side. And then I also remembered that signed global IDs has an only option we could pass in. We could do like, let's say we might only want post and comments. Cool. So right now what we settled is we settle a bunch of organizational skeleton around this feature. Like this might seem like it will hold up actually, so that I'm kind of confident with that part. What I don't know is I don't quite remember how signed global ID works. So that would be the next thing I want to look at. Is it find as a locate? I think there is an option to use only, but I don't remember. And also we might have uncovered something where, granted the spec is pretty loose, but do we actually only want to favorite a few things in our system, or do we want to favorite more things? So the design feedback that I want to focus on next, if I want to continue this, is to like, does this actually work, or would it, if it doesn't work, then it breaks the design. So we have to do something different. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the stuff we just wrote out. Cool. Let's see. Cool. Let's talk about some of the benefits I've had out of this thing. For me, the primary benefit is the fact that this involves fewer sunk costs and that it's really low friction. So for the most part, once I have a shape, I can really start playing around with it and so forth. Do I like this? Do I want to do something different? And we're also dispensing with a bunch of the usual process like migrations, git commits, even files and tests, so forth, because we absolutely need those things, and they're really helpful also when we settle on what we're doing. But if we're not sure, the drag that these processes can have can actually prevent us from trying more things, in my experience, where it's like, okay, so I migrated one thing, and then I know I want to change something. Okay, so I'll roll back and change that. But then if something else comes along where like, oh, I want to change that too, I'm like, oh, now I kind of done it again. So have to eat the same cost as well. So it creates a little bit of some sunk cost where it's like, I want to settle for this and just move on for something. So this is one of the benefits I get out of it. And then because I'm also sort of riffing in just one Ruby file, I can drop into business logic and see if the relationships actually hold up. So I can have that sense of this design, but I'm not designing it in a perfect vacuum where I'm just, oh, this is going to be so great, but I can drop in and see if it's going to hold up or whatnot. And then if it's disproven, I can just change my mind and rip it out and backtrack and do something different. And then conversely, if something does hold up, I feel a little bit more confident in it and so forth, at least at that stage. Let's see. Once I have a shape I like, it's also because I don't have the same drag of all the other processes I've used, the same inertia, I also feel like I have a lot more energy to then try out alternatives in terms of like different names, different approaches, all the different shapes and so forth. Sometimes I also had a thing where I might struggle with, do I want to pick A or option B? And then sometimes I'll write out option A and then quickly be like, oh, I actually want option B. Sometimes it's more, okay, I want to write the whole way through with option A and see how that looks like, the whole way through with option B, and then compare the two, pick one of them, or even combine into like a third option. Another benefit I feel like I get out of this is because I'm exploring more, I'm getting more experience per feature in terms of leveling up my skills, in terms of naming, structuring things, trying out with different approaches. And then all of this helps in the aggregate as well, because if I get more per riffing session, then I get more over time as well. And then that's more leverage sort of in the aggregate, essentially. This is going to be a little bit of a weird one, but I like to call that I'm also embodying the problem, because when I'm jumping around in these riffing files during a session so much, I feel like I'm dropping things and picking them back up. So I feel like my recall is getting trained really well. And it leads to a feeling where I'm not just mentally understanding a specification, but I'm also kind of, oh yeah, I have a feel for that almost. It's like an extra touch point or something. It's a little bit weird if you haven't experienced it. I also like to call it that I have a higher dexterity feel for the problem, so that I can then talk to a coworker about it, or a stakeholder, like, oh, we surfaced an unknown unknown. How do you actually want to tackle this? Do you want to handle it this way or this way? Let's see. Yeah, so this gives me a better sense of ownership, because it's not just a mental thing, kind of. And also when you're doing these riffings, you generate an artifact in these files that you can then share as well and talk with people about it. Okay, and one of the things I'm trying to do as I'm doing these sessions is to really focus on getting things out of my head. I don't want to, this is not about keeping things in my head at all. It's just getting them out there so that I'm not holding it in, essentially. Let's see. More of that. The same thing with in the small demo there, where I'm settling both the user and the user favorite, where suddenly that's done, and then I don't have to think about that, and I can focus a lot more just on how do I actually do the sign global ID thing, and can this even work? But the other things hold up, so that's steady enough for now. See, another kind of strange benefit I found here is that if there are any negative emotions, they're actually really useful early. In the old cycle, what I feel was towards the end of a cycle, if something was popped up or something, I'd then be like, it would be like an emotional gut punch of oh, I can't do this, or I should have done this a different way, whatever. So it'd like sting more, and like, oh, but I spent maybe a week or whatever on developing something, and then it wasn't really what we needed or wanted. But now, if I shift that to early, suddenly it becomes really useful. I had an experience where doing a bunch of YouTube sessions on this stuff too with Jeremy, who's sitting in the front row, and we had a guest on who was a lawyer who wanted some help with a riffing thing. Essentially, we tried to do this thing, and I thought I had a good enough handle going into it, and we spent 40 minutes on it. I got some good ways with it. But at the end, I was like, oh, I actually feel incompetent, really weirdly enough. But I was really happy that I got that feedback early, because then I could focus on what is it that I need to do to tackle those feelings, as opposed to also having spent a long time implementing something and then having the same realization later on. Same thing too with things like self-doubt. Suddenly that can indicate that there's something in the spec, for instance, where you can't go further. Okay, maybe there's something we should look at there. Cool. Let's talk about some of the obstacles I've had with this, or obstacles you might be facing if you want to try it. You do need to know some APIs to be able to put things together and whatnot. But the good news is that I get a lot of mileage out of knowing how to put things together just with like belongs to and has made it, like you saw in the little demo, and also leaning on just REST controllers and knowing how to play with that. And then once you have that kind of base, you can then riff a bit, and then it'll be pretty clear where to level up, because you just can't go further if you try it out. Like, oh, I get stuck here. Okay, but that's an indicator that that's where I want to focus on if you want to try to get this further. I'm also really scared just looking at a blank file. That's partly why I tend to just embed the spec in the file to help me get over that. There's already something in there, somebody else sort of wrote it, if you will. I also tend to stick to conventions a lot, because that helps. So I'm not having to reinvent the wheel from scratch or whatever, because it can be kind of daunting. It's like, oh, I just have to piece together a bunch of Ruby to make all this work. Let's see. I'm also trying to just remain in an open mode, if that makes sense, when I'm looking at one of these blank files of like being a state of, I don't know, let's try, and seeing what happens. Let's see. And then the weird one there with no test, I find that that's okay for me in a way, because again, I'm leaning on all these conventions, so I know kind of how to test some of these things. Like we didn't get super advanced in a little demo there because that's even a bigger smell. In these cases, we're like, oh, wait, how am I actually going to test this? So the more I lean on the stuff I know how to work, that helps me at least, because I know it's going to work reasonably well. Okay. See, if you get stuck, that's actually okay. Let me take a sip of water. But then what's going to allow you to be able to go further if you get stuck and try this, it's in those moments where you get stuck, where you then come up with some your own small creative ways of getting out. Sometimes it could be like swapping out a name. And what I really found with that is surprisingly how much it can help in terms of giving me a different vantage point, and it unlocks a whole bunch of stuff. And that pings off to get some other different ideas as well of getting out. The other thing I tend to do is if I'm stuck on one thing, I might jump to something else and noodle further on there. Sometimes it's backtracking, like, oh, this actually didn't pan out the way I wanted to, figure out a way to backtrack and then try a different path. See, another kind of weird thing I do if I get stuck, where you saw in the little demo I left out the application control, application record, so I might go back and fill in some of that stuff when I'm stuck, because I find it's almost like a little bit, sounds weird, but it's a little bit meditative in a way, where it's very repetitive. I don't have to really think about it, but just doing a little bit of that noodling helps get something moving almost, or like get me ready for the next thought in a way. And then really the best advice I can give is, if you're in doubt, just experiment more, try more things, see what happens. You might not know what's going to come out of it. You're not really, with this technique, you're not meant to sort of sit still and think your way to resolving something. It's more almost you're trying things out and seeing what happens. Okay, cool. Let's try the live demo thing. Let's see how that's gonna go. Sorry. Okay, where's the? Oh no, I need to. Here? No. Here? Okay, I see it. There. Okay. So actually, before we get started with this, if any of you have suggestions, you can raise your hand and then get a mic passed out. And then I might want a suggestion, and then I might look up and like see who has the mic or whatever. We're trying out and see if it works. Okay, makes sense? Okay, cool, okay. So what we're working with here is this credit system. So teams with a subscription are issued a set of credits every month based on their plan level. Those credits can be used to pay for various types of reports. Small reports may cost 1 credit, large reports may cost 500 credits. Reports may also vary in cost depending on the contents and configured options at the time of initiation. Credits have an expiration date based on when they're issued. When expired, they can no longer be used to pay for reports. When reports are paid for with credits, the system should use credits that are closest to expiration. So that's a huge mouthful, and I don't really know where to start. Wait, I actually have to do something. Hold on. Because otherwise I'm going to type over this screen. I can't do that for like 20 minutes. Let's see. Mirror? Okay. There we go. Okay, now I can see it on my screen too. Perfect. Okay, so I don't know what to start with this. I think I'm just going to do like a class team or something. What do we want? We want some credits. What if we try like team credits? I have enough time. Okay, that's cool. Cool. Let's see, something to do with quiz reports. Do we want this, or do we want, actually I wonder if we want like a team balance. Maybe it has like a credit cost kind of thing. By the way, did anybody raise their hand for Mike? I'm just checking, so I'm not leaving anybody too. Let's see. So I have this cost that might accrue some of these credits essentially. Small reports may cost 1 credit. Let's try that. So there's probably also something to do with a report. Okay. So maybe it has a cost of 1 or something. Tune this up. Cool. You have a thing?
Yeah. So one thing that I think makes sense is a term that I heard from a previous live is buckets, and that would contain credits that expire at the same time. So you would have 5 buckets, for example. 1 bucket expires tomorrow, still has 300 credits left, and 1 bucket would expire next month, and would have 1,000 credits left.
Are you saying tickets?
Buckets. Like
buckets. Oh, okay.
It's actually used as well in mobile things where you have like data that might expire. A data pack that you bought might expire next month, and a monthly data plan, that's also using that same terminology, and I think that would really fit here.
Interesting. Okay, so instead of a balance, you're talking about buckets, or? Okay, perfect. Let's try it. I'm just gonna do it separately here. Huh? I can't hear you. Can you press the mic?
I thought my voice would be loud enough. Anyway, a team would have multiple buckets, obviously.
Buckets. Oh, multiple. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see. Let's try that then. Class T. That's good. Okay. C buckets and then. Oh, something like that. Yeah, so they're issued every month or something like that. Let's see. Okay. Let's do this then. They're issuing something, and then we have. So I think. Okay, what if we do this? Maybe. So a team bucket has like a, so we're creating a bucket every month. It has a certain amount in it based on that plan level. So we have the first level kind of, first sentence kind of solved in a way. And we push that onto this balance thing. Let's try to see if that'll work. What's up? Mic over here or something? Oh, not yet. Okay, fair enough. No worries. Let's see, push the amount on. So what do we want here? So I almost want to write this down somewhere, not just on the balance. I'm not sure if this is an active record yet or whatever. I think it might be. Kim wants to say something. Cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it on? Yep. It was a mouthful, the specs at the top. And to me, when they're out of screen, they're out of mind. Would you ever like group them together with implementation? Kind of cluster? Because you mentioned credits in more than one place, for example. You mentioned team in more than one place, but they're a bit spread out. I can imagine the requirements come in this form, but is there a grouping here that could be useful?
You mean in what sense?
Either of the comments or putting the comments next to their respective thing.
Oh, you mean like taking this and splitting it up and putting it somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. I'm not sure. I tend to just leave it the same grouping up top. But yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's see. Where else do I want to go with this? Push the balance on there. Buckets and everything. I think I might have lost what I'm doing here, so I think I'm actually just gonna start over here. Let's try a little bit of first. Let's try. I want to see what happens if we do something with a credit or something. We don't want it just one thing. We want to do a credit bundle or something.
About the expiration date and how that complicates the credits. So
yeah,
it seems like we really need to figure that out.
You mean the expiration date?
Yeah, the expiration date on the credits. Yeah.
Yeah, in what sense? I can barely hear you when you use the mic for some reason.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the expiration date on the credits and how we need to figure that out because it really complicates the whole system. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's imagine we have this first. Or let's see where we can do that. So maybe we have like an issue with that, and then they want to expire at some point. Whoa.
Yeah, maybe expiration period or like how long.
Right.
Yeah, how long they're good for.
Oh yeah, we could actually do maybe there's an expires in or something like that. So then maybe what this will look like if we have like credits or something, and then I'm not not sure. Where do I want to go with this? So now I'm at the place where I also feel stuck, and I'm trying to figure out what to go, but then I'm thinking about it as opposed to kind of like doing it. So just try more things based on my own advice. Let's see. If we try with this stuff.
How do you feel about making methods that?
Where are you at? Over here?
Right here.
Where are you at?
Right here.
Oh, right here. Okay.
How do you feel about making methods and making them kind of as verbose as possible, and then also having inputs, and then kind of so they're duplicated, obviously, and then we can extract those out into classes.
Wait, you're whispering now. Can you put
Sorry.
mic closer?
I'll say it again. What if we took those requirements and turned them into like methods, very verbose, with the inputs, and then take that duplication and separate it out into classes?
Yeah. Could be.
So for instance, like line number 5, we could say like expire credits, and then have like an input for date issued.
Like shit out or something. You mean like this?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we would just we could put an if statement that if it's issued at is greater than or whatever.
Do that maybe.
And if we did that for all the requirements, we might be able to go just based on the name and say, okay, all these take credits. Now let's put that into a class called credit.
Let's pretend we're doing this. I don't know what that look like. Yeah. Might work. Another what? Yeah, true. Yeah.
So earlier you had the concept of a balance, right? And we could move that over to team. What I'm thinking is that we could have many bundles that are associated with the team and sum them in order to get the balance, right? And then when you're pulling from them, you can then look at that expire in date or that expire at date, sort by that in order to pull your most recent bundle and deduct from that amount. What do you think about that?
I think it sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I'm just wondering essentially. I think I've lost the plot of what I was meant to do. So I don't know if I can actually continue with this further, because I can tell I can't put it together right now. So I think I want to pass to other sessions we have on YouTube. Like, I loved all the suggestions you have, but I can tell I can't. Yeah, here comes Tom. Okay.
Let me throw out an idea. What if the credits themselves are just issued? They all stand alone. They all have their expiration date. You can always just do team.credits.not expired.
Yeah.
Or active or whatever, and it would bring back any that were not expired. The balance is just summing all of the credits.
Yeah.
Or not summing, but counting how many of those credits they have. And then you can have I'm not sure where the bundle comes in.
Yeah.
But the plan seems to make sense. Like the plan would dictate how many credits you get credited every month. But then every month, all you would do is create the credits for that team. And then every time you create a credit, every credit knows when it expires.
Yeah.
And then the transactions to add and subtract them, just maybe they mark the credit as being used or fulfilled.
Let's see where it expires. Let's see that.
Yeah, and you could have a scope that would tell you credits that are available credits or something.
Right, yeah.
And instead of expires in, I would just do expires at, so then you could say date today, anything that hasn't,
cool.
or time.now or whatever.
Do you mean expiring, or what was the scope?
I think you're probably going to want to be able to access the available credits to figure out how many of the credits they have available to them, so that if they're going to make a purchase, they're going to run a report, it's going to require 4 credits. You could say, is the balance, where the balance would just be a count of the available credits.
Yeah. Could be something like this.
Yeah. Were not expired. Credits were not expired. Here are credits that are available.
We're going to do it available. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not booked to, I can never figure out date math, so I don't care if this doesn't quite work, because it's enough, it's scoped enough that we can figure it out. Cool. What do we have here? Yeah, over you want to go?
Is it working? Okay. Some of the verbs are already in the spec. So like there's a concept of issuing a credit. So credits might have an issue method.
Right.
That would create a new credit and set the expiry at the correct time in the future from the date when we're doing the issuing. And there's also another verb there, which is to pay for something using credits.
Mm-hmm.
So then that would find the credit with the closest expiry.
Yeah.
Deduct the amount and continue as long as, you know, we have stuff to pay for. So we could just like start implementing some of those verbs as methods, maybe.
Yeah, makes sense. I can tell I'm gonna have to call it. I can't figure it all. So I didn't expect that at all, but I'm gonna have to revert you to, or push you over to like some YouTube videos we have with this stuff. Let's see how I do this. Stop mirroring. Do that part. Oh, it's still showing that. Where's the other one? Over here. Over here. That was that. Let's head into a wrap up instead. I do have receipts because I was wondering if this is going to work or not, or if I could do it. We record some live sessions on a YouTube channel. Great name I have on there, but there's over 6 hours from all these stuff, so you can see what it actually looks like in real life when I can think a little bit more myself. You did great. That's not what I meant, but just I can't connect the pieces. So, what? Sorry? You haven't made a comment?
What you have here, if there's more than one person involved, is essentially a technique for reaching technical rapport.
Yeah.
And technical rapport gets increased. It's an in-body problem. It gets increasingly hard the more people you try and reach rapport with, and we have a few people here.
Yeah.
So you're trying to stitch together the technical.
I know. Yeah.
like a dozen people.
It was because I did this as a course at one point too, online and everything, and I got a little bit of a ways in, and then we started taking feedback from like a chat and everything, and that worked super well where everything kind of worked, but not this time. So you did great. That's not it, but let's see here. So I want to give some tips if you want to try this out. It's going to be easier when it's not in front of an auditorium. What I've done in the past is just pick out UI you like. Like I use Overcast as a podcast app. It has a bunch of settings. And I was like, that's interesting. How would I model this? And I remember doing 2 different versions, and I deleted the code because it's a learning experience. GitHub Sponsors also has this weird thing where they have these tiers, and there's one time and recurring. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that would look like. Another thing you can do is start with a trusted coworker to see how it goes, put a timer on and see where you get to. It's a little bit easier. That's another thing you can see in YouTube videos where Jeremy is at too. I'm kind of in a driver's seat, but if I get stuck, he has some helpful questions along with it. If you're a team lead, you could try to write up some sort of prompt, ask the team to riff together for 30 minutes, and then compare and see what happens. Overall, when you get into the flow state, it's actually pretty cheap to run, and sessions are never more than that, like 40 to 60 minutes. So it's never really a loss because you do learn something every day. So another thing where we could try this out, I'm there tomorrow at the Hack Day. I have an open source tool called Oaken that I'm going to be working on from like 10 a.m. to noon probably. If you want to see that, come join me there. And then if you want to try riffing on your thing tomorrow, if you have some sort of idea for a feature or prompt or anything, we can look at that probably for like 30 minutes each or something between 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Yeah, that makes sense. I can't PM and AM right now. I'm European, so that's good. Also, real quick, I have a bunch of different gems you may be interested in. There's a joke one too, Hercule Poirot. I think that's clever, but okay, let's see. Yeah, more a bunch of those things. If you would like to work with me on some of the stuff, pick your poison in terms of social media site or an email. I do think that this could be really helpful for teams, but check their YouTube videos. It's a little bit more convincing to like do them. Cool. That's it for me. Cool. What makes sense?